Welcome back to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast. Today we have Kate Black with us. She is the editor and owner of Bitching Books Editorial. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to learn more about the editing process, what got you into editing, and just your general experience on the Bookstagram community. So, why don't we start with how we know each other? Do you want to tell the story?
Sure. I followed you, I think, before you reached out to me. And so I kind of knew about you, but I didn't really know anything about your books. I think we were maybe in the same group chat for authors. And then one day I got a message from you about needing a new editor, and you had gone through just this horrible ordeal with the last one, and we just started chatting, and one thing led to another, and now I'm your editor.
So I do want to just add, when I sent you that message, I'm not a person that panics easily. So when you just handled it in that moment, you were so calm and you were so professional, and you were just like, you were the right balance to my panic, which is weird because not a lot of people can actually say that. Um, and I also noticed recently on your Bookstagram that I'm apparently not your only author that you have had this similar situation with. I think it was TM Lynn. Lynn, I think that's her name.
TJ London.
TJ Lynn. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Instagram handle now in my head.
No, you're good.
I may have said in another podcast, it's like a marriage. You're not getting rid of me, so
Yeah, we're
you
stuck with each other now.
I mean, what's the joke that we have? I have enough book ideas to keep you editing until 2030.
I think so, at least. And
Yeah,
that's just with the book ideas you have right now. That's not even counting the ones that you're going to have tomorrow. So,
exactly. I love that for us.
mhm.
Um, I do want to ask you, Kate, though, in an industry where so many people decide to go the author route, what made you decide to go the editing route?
That's a great question. And that's actually something that my dad asked me when I told him that I was going to start my editing business. And honestly, I originally I didn't really know why. I just thought I don't really have a story to tell. And then when I started talking with the authors that I was working with and asking them how they come up with these characters and their storylines and their plot, and quite a number of them were like, I don't really come up with the characters. They're just in my head screaming to get out. And I need to put them out on paper. And I thought, that's really cool. I've never had that experience. I think that if I wanted to, I could sit down and think it out and write it out because I really enjoy ideas and brainstorming. But I also feel like it would feel really forced on my part. Whereas I think that as an editor, I can come in and I can read what an author's given me. And if they're stuck somewhere, then I can be like, well, what if they did this, or maybe this, and give ideas and solutions that then they can go and run with. And so I just feel like I have the gifting of I don't know, behind the scenes, the hair and makeup of the book and not the actual story of the book, if that makes sense.
I actually love that, the hair and makeup, because if I look at like what we did now on the judgment, it was my first experience with developmental editing. And I looked at some of the questions you asked me, and I was like, I didn't think of that. I mean, like the most obvious one, when you were like, why don't you? Because for anyone that hasn't read the War of the Witchlands trilogy that we're talking about, it was a single POV series. And Kate came in for the Judgment, which was supposed to be another single POV book. And she was like, well, why don't you turn this character into a multi POV? And I was like, huh. Writing Lilith specifically was so much fun. The feminine rage was just, I was like, the patriarchy must die. But that, to your point, that's hair and makeup where sure it was my idea, but you took it and you made it better. And I think that's where the gift of editing really shines through.
I really I loved Lilith too. Every time I got to one of her chapters, I was like, yes, more rage, more anger. And it's just so much fun to be able to like, I don't know, team up with an author and like help their vision be what they want it to be.
Specifically, if there is bad feedback, I need you to give it to me in writing first so I can process and then we can deal. And I find that you've adapted really well to giving not so great feedback. Where I find that some editors could make it about what they like, or they could make it about, they could really take the author's voice away, and you don't do that. You always make sure that my voice as an author has been preserved, but then also how do you uplift it? And I think that's something you can't teach someone. That is truly another, you've either got it or you don't.
That is cool, because I really appreciate you sharing that with me, because that is something that I guess I don't necessarily like. When I hear authors say like they stole my voice and this editor stole my voice, I almost don't understand how they do it, and so it's almost like I can't do it, because, and maybe that's like the non-writer in me of like, I don't feel like I have a writing voice, and so it's hard to like change it to my voice when I don't have that background. And so I almost feel like it's helpful at times to not have kind of like my own writing style, because I can kind of just adapt to yours and keep it under your style with saying like, is this going to make sense to the reader? Because I'm struggling with it. And that's kind of what whenever I ask a question is this going to make sense to a reader? Which I think is helpful.
Going into the clash of the damned developmental edit, and I can't wait to see what you do with that one, because we never got that opportunity for the Rule of the Damned. Again, just for a little bit of listener context, this is not a me plugging my books scenario. This is trying to showcase that this is what an editor really does behind the scenes, and this is what they deal with. Obviously, my books are the natural examples. That's the word.
Mhm.
And I think if we look at how you came into the Rule of the Damned, we obviously didn't have enough time there. And I was lucky that I had a really intensive beta process. They could pick up a lot of the feedback that needed to be addressed. So we only really had time to do a little bit of, you did a little bit of a hybrid between proofreading and copy editing. It wasn't just proofreading.
That's fair. It was more of a hybrid, yeah.
But I think looking back on it now, if we had more time, I would have liked to have done dev edits on the
Okay.
Rule of the Damned with you as well. Like, I mean, it's done, so we can't. But that's why I'm so excited about doing dev edits with you on the Clash of the Damned. Because it's kind of like our chance to make it up.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's going to be so fun.
Focus a little bit on your business name. You have a very interesting business name.
Thank you.
Tell me, what was the thought process there? How did you come up with that? Just give us a little bit of background.
Okay, so yeah, so it was like November, wasn't this last November, so it was November 2023, and I just finished this book called Slewfoot, and I thought it was so good, but I had no one in my life to share it with. Like, my family doesn't read fantasy, I had no friends who read fantasy at the time, and I thought, fine, I'm just going to make a book-themed Instagram so that I can just get it out. Like, I need someone else to know about this book. And I thought, well, what do I want to name it? And at that point in my life, I was just kind of going through some personal things. And I decided that when I created my book account, I was going to be unashamedly me. And I wasn't going to apologize for things. And I wasn't going to second guess. And I wasn't going to delete things because I felt bad about them afterwards. And it was going to be almost like an example of, it's okay to be me. Like, people will still like it if I'm just me. And in an effort to do that, I named my Instagram Bitchin' Books, because I've always loved the term bitchin'. I didn't grow up in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s, but was super jealous of like, oh, look at that boat, that's bitchin', or oh, that car's bitchin'. Like, I don't know. I just have always loved that vibe and that, I don't know, way of, I wasn't allowed to swear growing up, and so swearing for me is kind of fun now. And I thought, like, Slewfoot was bitchin', so like I just want people to know that there's all these amazing books out there. And so I created my Instagram name, and then from there, kind of started ARC reading, and that's kind of where I got this thought of, well, maybe I could be an editor. And then I just kind of sent out this post that said, hey, I'm training to be an editor. Are there 5 authors who want to give me their manuscripts? I will go through them for free, just for practice. And one of the authors there said, are you going to name your business Bitch and Books Editorial? And I said, well, now I am, because it just sounded so cool.
I never knew that. I mean, granted, I never asked before now, but like, that is such a fucking cool story for how you came up with your name. Like, just that message of, I'm going to be unapologetically me. And I think, like, in the times where, like, how the world is, that is so important, especially as I would say the book community is starting to demand more and more authenticity. And that's exactly who you are. And I know that. I'm speaking, we've been together for almost a year now.
Yeah.
It's been almost a year. Can you believe it? And I know for a fact that you are one of the most genuine people, and how you are in business is exactly how you are in real life. So just hearing your story of how you came up with that name, I'm like, yeah, that fits for Kate, 100%.
And I will say there have definitely been things that I've deleted and like taken back, but it's been like a good practice. And it's been
Yeah,
like a safe place to practice, which has been really cool.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I share similar sentiments with that on my page, where I post whatever I want it to mean. Fuck aesthetics. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just post what I like. But there are times where I do sometimes look back on content where I go, this wasn't my best. And when I say my best, I'm not talking about comparing to some other author. I'm talking about my best. And I was like, I can actually do better here. I'm going to archive this one and I'm going to make the next version better. And I think that's different to what we're talking about now.
That's fair. Than just like the always comparing, contrasting with other bookstagrammers around you, because that's not a fun hole to get yourself into.
No, and we definitely want to stay out of that one.
Very far out.
So Kate, you offer quite a few editing services, some that I didn't even know existed before I saw what you offered. Obviously, I would assume some are your favorites, some are least favorites. So do you want to tell me which is your least favorite editing service and why?
That's such a hard one because so I'm kind of a mood reader and I feel like I'm kind of a mood editor as well, because sometimes I'm like really in the mood to do a dev edit, but I do think that's probably the hardest edit that I offer is the developmental edit, because it is a lot of, and I think how you and I have decided to work on developmental edits is a little bit different than how I work on it with some other people as well. Because I want to be able to give the author exactly what they need and what's going to be the most helpful. And so it's a lot of like chapter summaries, which I enjoy doing, but can sometimes I'm like, no, I just want to know what happens in the rest of the book. Whereas like with a copy edit, I'm not rewriting the chapters in my own words, so that way the author knows what the reader is getting out of each chapter. And so, but then sometimes I'm reading and I'm like, man, I really don't want to deal with semicolons today and like commas. And so it's really hard because I think I'm still at the process where everything is still like fun though and glossy. And so I don't really have one that I'm like, ugh, someone wants me to do a line edit. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah. And so, yeah, sorry. I feel like I gave you a non-answer for that one.
No, I actually kind of like how you answered that, because I worked it out recently. In November 2024, this November that just passed, I have been writing nonstop for over 2 years. Okay. And I mean, I'm not talking about the odd like week break here, week break there. And a lot of people go, oh, but you burned out, or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. Like, this is fun. The moment this stops being fun for me, then it makes me reevaluate my whole author like career, because I do this because it's fun. I do it because it's a creative outlet. So in a way, I feel like our answers are kind of similar.
I agree because it is a creative outlet, and like I have a day job which I would one day like to not have and just be able to edit, but it is almost like an escape of my regular 9 to 5 into this new business that I have that just I feel like brings me life. I feel like it's the first thing that I found where I'm able to like offer something and feel fulfilled, even though I'm the one who's putting out the work, which is really enjoyable.
I love that so much. We've got a bit of a different process from standard editing, I would say relationships, where ours is more of a collaboration versus I finish writing, hand it over to you to edit, you finish editing, hand it over to me, and this back and forth. We kind of just, here's the doc, get to your part,
Yeah.
figure it out. I know with dev edits, I said to you that I didn't want the report because for me, it made no sense because I was like, why do I want a separate document when this is my document with the manuscript? So I love that you are so flexible in terms of how you're willing to approach an author relationship because I have seen that some other relationships are a little bit more rigid, which just it sometimes becomes a bit stifling. But then I also know you do have other clients, as much as I like to pretend you don't. So how do you deal with scheduling in a case like that? Because I would imagine you schedule with other authors as well.
Yeah. So I offer everyone a 6-week contract because that gives me the confidence that I can get it out regardless of what's going on in my personal life. So I said that I have a 9-to-5 job. I do, but it's not actually like 9 to 5 hours, which is awesome. I have a lot of wiggle room in that. And so there are weeks where I'll be working full time for him. And then there are weeks where I'll work 4 hours for him. And I know that, in a month and a half contract, I will have time to give the book the intensive read that it needs to do over that course of time. And so generally I will have at max 3 authors that I'm working with at any given time, but they are always segmented. So if we start with 6 weeks, then maybe this author will start 2 weeks into your 6 weeks, and then this author will start 4 weeks into your 6 weeks. And so that way I always have a week to 2 weeks where all I'm focused on is that one author. So that way I can kind of stack them, which is really helpful.
That's actually a really cool system. I remember when we were finishing up with the judgment, I was like, okay, cool. Kate will be done by the end of this week. Come on. Oh no, you were like, here, hold my beer. Edit, done Monday nights. And I was like, yeah. So okay, that's the kind of flexibility you're talking about. That makes sense.
And so I purposely give myself too much time because I know that my life can also get really crazy. And the last thing I want is for the author to feel that. I really want to keep the commitments I've made to them. So
have you ever been in a position where you have not been able to, let's say, meet an author's requirements? So say, for example, I come to you now and I go, hey, I want to write 2 books in the next month. I mean, I'm not going to, but let's just play hypothetical. And just listening to what you've explained now, that doesn't sound like something that would maybe fit within what you can offer. How would you handle a conversation like that?
That's interesting. So I think that I would, tell them that's a great question. Because I have past examples of people, and I think a lot of it is based off of I really struggle when I give a boundary or say something and then someone fights back on that. And so not to totally ignore your example, but I had an example with someone that I was working with this last year, and they were the editor fell through. I think it was beginning of November. And they said, I need someone to edit this book starting December and getting it done December 25th. And I can only pay this, and I can pay this amount of money. And it was going to be a third of what I should have charged. And I said, I'm not able to do this. I don't have the time. And they kept fighting back. Well, can you make the time? Can you push someone else off? I want this. And I was like, I cannot help you. I said, I could ask around to see if anyone else is willing to work with you, but this is not something. And then it just started making me frustrated because I was like, I already said no. I'm this close to blocking this person. And so I don't know if they ended up finding someone else. I did notice that their Instagram got taken down because of some bullying. So
Whoa, that is insane. I mean, just expecting you to drop other clients.
You know, it was a really uncomfortable situation. And I was like, you're not like, I know that you're the best person in your world and the main focus, but you are freaking in Mars in my world. Like,
We had a conversation about where I had moved deadlines forward and I forgot to tell you. And that was on me. And then we were trying to work, and you're like, oh, let's see what we can do. And I was like, no, no, no. I messed up here. I understand you have other clients. So tell me what you can still do within this, and I will adapt accordingly. Because to your point, sure, I am the most important person in my world. But as much as I like to pretend you don't have other clients, you do because you're trying to run a business at the end of the day.
and that is one thing that kind of comes up. So in the contract, I say that they will get the document back within 6 weeks based on the fact that you have given me the document on the date that we have drawn up. And so that is another thing that can be tricky, is if someone signs a contract, but then they're not able to give me their manuscript on time, I don't care. Like, I want to work with you and get you in. And so as long as you're okay with me saying like, okay, yeah, I can get you in, but I have other clients right now, it's going to take me 2 months to get it turned around. And it probably won't take me 2 months, but it could. And so now I'm giving you like that ability to say like, you can take your deposit money back and go find someone else if you want to, but like, I'm also totally fine working with you and just giving me a little bit longer on the deadline. And 9 times out of 10, that's worked out really well. And people have been really open, because my heart is working with self-published authors who are doing, their moms, their dads, they have full-time jobs, they have soccer practice, like there's all sorts of things. And I get that. And so I never want to hold someone to their schedule and then make it like you have to do it now, because it shouldn't be stressful to publish a book that you love and care about. It should be something that's fun and fulfilling and encouraging. And so that is my goal, is trying to make it as much of that as I can for the author.
A lot of people might not know this about editing, but it can actually be a fun experience, as you just said. And I know that even though we came together during the Rule of the Damned, with it being, let's say, a very stressful period of my life because of all the changes, it actually ended up being a really fun experience, number one. And number two, we actually finished my deadline, I think, a month earlier than planned because of how fast you worked with me in that case, knowing, the context of my stressful situation. And then if I look at what we did on the judgment, sure, there's some lessons we can apply there. And we've briefly touched on that, and we'll figure that out for the Clash of the Dad. But it was such a fun experience because I was struggling to write it, and you're like, cool, I'm going to just give you a little tap along the way and keep you writing, and I'll crack that whip in the most loving way possible. And it was such a fun experience.
Well, and it's almost like you're, in your writing cave and you're like furiously typing away and you're trying to figure out these scenes. And then all of a sudden I come in with cupcakes and it's like, oh, what if that just happens? Here's some cupcakes. Do you want the light on? It looks like it's a little dark in here. Like maybe some nice soft music, set the mood a little. Because when you guys are in the thick of it, and then you're stressing about your characters, you're stressing about your deadlines, and then it's like I can just pop in and be like, whoa, it's all good. No one's gonna die. Maybe one of your characters is gonna die, but no one out here. Like, it's safe.
I mean, now every time I get frustrated with writing, I'm going to remember this moment and be like, "You're taking the cupcakes." Oh, that's brilliant. So, Kate, I have a serious question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I ask every guest this question: what's your bookish hot take?
I mean, I said that I was going to be like totally me on my Instagram, but I don't want to lose all my followers. So I'm going to say it this way. My bookish hot take is that I get a little frustrated when we can't get over popular books.
Like ACOTAR?
I don't want to name names or point fingers or like throw anyone under the bus. But yeah, that's a great example. Because it's frustrating to me because I work with all of these authors who are just trying to get their name out. And to me, a lot of the stories I read, I think are, I didn't finish ACOTAR, so I guess I can't say, but like I didn't get bought in by the first book. And if an author doesn't buy me in by the first book, you have not bought my readership. That's on the author. I shouldn't feel bad about not having to read the whole series. Anyway, I've read a lot of books that have a lot of really awesome characters, character development, world building, and overall just like storylines that are so unique and fun. And it's like there's not even a chance for them because there's just so much, ACOTAR, TOG, Fourth Wing. I think it's amazing that these popular authors are getting so many people into the fantasy genre. I think that they're doing really great things for fantasy and for readers and, spice in books now. Like, I think that becoming more of like a norm. Like, I think those are all good things. But it's also frustrating when it's like, okay, but you're reading other things after you've read these. So let's talk about the other things that you're reading as well.
Especially when it's a blanket question about what your bookish hot take is, and somehow it always ends up in this category. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Glass Wings by L.K. Lee, an indie author who we've had on the podcast. I'm thinking of Control My Night, a copy right over here, by Sarah Raquel. And those two books alone are phenomenal. They deserve far more attention than they've been getting. And I would definitely say Control My Night is definitely more urban romantasy. It's also a mafia book, like The Rule of the Damned. It's a different take on a mafia book. It was one of my top reads of 2024, hands down. And I mean, there was one scene specifically, if anyone's read the book, they'll know exactly which scene I'm talking about. It's in the library. I'll leave you with that.
Ooh, getting this book on my TBR.
Because I ordered a signed copy from the author, I said to her, I was like, you need to write my dedication as if it was Sexy Daddy Arwood. So
Yes.
it says in the book, eyes on me.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying, Control My Night. That is, but that's your point, is that books like this need far more attention than they're getting. It's because we can't compete with ACOTAR's World. We just don't have that kind of that marketing power, because that's what it comes down to. I look at Glass Wings by L.K. Lee. She's busy working on the final book in that trilogy. She has not one but two original species in her book. Okay, we spent a little bit of time discussing it on her episode, and I looked at her and I was like, I know people are impressed by world building and how authors can just do that, but like, as an author, I'm impressed. And she's just like, no. She's just like, okay, cool. I'm just going to come up with an entire new world, and I'm like, wow, you can love ACOTAR and indie books too. It's not one or the other.
Absolutely agree.
So I want to go back to your editing services a little bit, because I know that when I started working with a professional editor, there was a lot that I didn't know about editing. So say, for example, the rule that you guys have about not more than 2 passes, because then your brain starts filling in mistakes and things like that on its own.
Mm-hmm.
What is one editing, I almost want to say, rule that you think more people should be aware of?
Editing rules it's okay to break them. And I will say it's okay to break them as long as it makes sense. Because I have worked with authors who break them and it doesn't make sense, and it makes it more confusing for the reader. And I have tried to say, like, this is actually more confusing. This is a rule for a reason, and this is the reason for that rule. And if I can give like background as to like why the rule is there. So I will say, like, if you're working with an editor, rules can be broken, but it needs to make sense. And I say that, I guess, a little bit sparingly, because the person that I'm thinking of decided that they were going to do it anyway, even when I said, like, this is really confusing for your reader. It ended up being confusing for the reader. And I don't know if they understood that yet or not, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know for me personally, I don't think we've ever had a case like that before. Yeah, off the top of my head, but I pretty much can tell you. I just write the story. You decide how it looks.
I know. I'll be like, do you want this capitalized or this capitalized? You're like, I don't care. Just
Do what you think.
whatever makes sense is great.
I do see a lot of people talking about the rules of editing, and it's a good reminder that with the right context, it can be broken if it makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
So, on the subject though of editors' rates, and you briefly touched on that at the beginning with that example, I'm seeing a little bit of a hot topic, or a hot topic discussion, I should rather say, that editing rates are too expensive, which you and I both know editing rates are just a normal livable rate that you guys are charging to be able to do this full time. How would I have a two-part question there? Number one, how do you approach costing as an editor? And number two, what do you think about this debate?
Yeah, so number one, I don't charge as much as editors who have been editing for 10 years. Like, I don't think that's fair for me to charge. And so I have just I started off with really low per word prices, and have just slowly added on to those, like, as I edit more, as I get more certificates, as I train myself more. And so I think that, like any job, I think that an editor, if you're self-employed, you need to give yourself a raise. Like, if you're doing a good job and you're training yourself, then you should raise your prices a little bit in order to make more money. I do think that it can be tricky because I was trying to do the math in my head to figure out, like, about how much I was making an hour based on what I charge per word right now, which can be really tricky because it really depends on, the edit and all of this. And I think, like, right now I'm making between $10 to $12 an hour. And more corporate companies are paying like $15 an hour. But, like, if you go to a coffee shop, like, they're probably going to start you at like $8 an hour. And so I'm okay doing that right now because I still feel like I'm honing my craft. I haven't been editing for years and years, and so I don't feel like I can charge that price. But I would like to work up to charging more because eventually I would like to be able to live off of the money. And so, yeah, it is interesting because I think that when you see, like, oh, I'm going to spend, $1,200 to have my book edited, that's a lot of money. Like, that's a lot of money for anything that you're spending, like, as a chunk. And so I think it could be helpful. I don't know in these conversations if people are, like, cutting it down to see what an editor is getting paid an hour. But I think that's an interesting way to look at it as well, instead of just looking at it as, like, the chunk price, because, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, you're a McDonald's employee, you get paid $15 an hour. And then if you're doing something more intensive, like $30 an hour, $40 an hour, I don't know but I also don't know what the cap should be, or if there should be a cap.
Amsterdam minimum wage, which I think last time I checked was about 18 euros per hour. So the euro is a little bit stronger than the dollar right now. So let's say that ends up being $17 per hour. Granted, the cost of living here is probably a bit higher than it is in Boise. But still, if you put it into perspective like that, I was like, oh, damn. Like, I mean, I pay your rates with the greatest of pleasure. I mean, you were one of the best investments I made in my writing career. So I have absolutely no problems paying that. But when I hear that, I'm almost like, well, how can we get you more? And I mean, I know I shouldn't say that because I'm paying my bill too. But everyone should be able to live not just surviving, but thriving as well.
I agree. Yeah.
So, but thank you for explaining that to us.
Mm-hmm. And I've lost clients because I have raised my prices. And that's hard for me because my heart, like I really, really want to work with self-published authors. I don't want to get a job with like Penguin or like some sort of like publishing house. So as I raise my prices, I'm going to lose out on some of those newer authors who are just getting started, who are younger, who, you know, don't have the savings to pay $1,200 for their book. And that is kind of, it's become kind of a difficult thing that I'm also trying to work through. And I was talking to my partner's dad about it the other day, and he had a similar moment in his career when he was young, and he had a mentor tell him, never discount your prices for anything. And that was really hard for me. This was like 2 weeks ago that we were talking about this. And I was like, man, I've discounted my prices a lot in the year and a half that I've been editing, just because I don't want to miss out on working with these authors. And so I feel like I'm kind of in like this tricky spot of like, okay, I want to grow my business and I want to, you know, make this a career for myself, but I also don't want to lose the authors that I'm working with. So it's kind of a struggle.
So I just had an epiphany. When you and I were agreeing last year on our editing rates for this year, I remember you asking me a question. You were like, cool, my rates go up next year. Are you okay with these prices? And to me, I was just like, duh, why are you even asking me? I wouldn't even know. I just accept that that's your price. Like, go for it. And now listening to you explain that, I understand why you asked that question. And it's a bit of a reality check, actually. I think there's still a way that we can go about making sure that we treat editors fairly, because not every editor is bad, obviously.
Right.
And I think regardless of how we feel about people, you know, respect and ethics in business is a thing, and we can do better in that.
And it is difficult for me when I see other editors who are marketing their prices as like cost per book instead of per word. Because to me, because I've seen a couple editors who are like, I'll do a copy edit for $200 for your full book. And to me, that gives me pause and hesitancy, because I'm like, but if you're spending, you know, 40 hours in that book, I don't know.
Yeah, you have questions.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, how much time are you spending in the book that you're only charging this amount? And I'm not saying that they're wrong, but it's almost like, so when my mom was starting to make chocolates, my mom has a chocolate company. She was selling them for a certain price and people weren't buying them. And we thought, like, why aren't they buying them? Like, they're a good price. When she raised her prices, people started buying them, because it was almost like, oh, this is quality chocolate. $3 for a truffle, that's got to be a good truffle. $1 for a truffle, like, I don't know, is it good?
Now that you brought up the cost per book thing, I have actually seen a few editors cost like that. And if you look at 40 hours, it's a normal work week, right? And if I look at any phase of editing for me, you spend on average a minimum of 2 weeks per editing phase on my books. Okay, it might not be all at once, it might be spread out, whatever, but the point is it's a minimum of 2 weeks. So that's 80 hours that you're spending on my one phase of editing. Like, that is a lot of work. And it just really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, in those 2 weeks, like I said, like maybe because it is helpful for me, and I would be interested in actually hearing other editors' thoughts. Like, it's helpful for me to have 2 projects to bounce back and forth with, because it just helps to be like, ooh, this world now. And now I'm getting a little weary. Now I'm going to jump over to this world and everything's fresh and bright and new. And so, but yes, I do think like when you see prices that seem too good to be true, you should ask a lot of questions.
I love that. Kate, tell me, what is one of your underrated fantasy books that someone has got to read that you wish was getting more love on Instagram?
Okay, I have 2 because I like to break rules. So my first is, I think I have it right here. Yes, perfect. Okay, is Veiled Voyage by Jennifer Mon. She's one of the authors that I work with. She writes out of Utah. This is the first book.
It's the first one, yeah.
Working on the third. This woman writes and has so many Easter eggs in her books. She has created her own worlds, her own species. She's also just a fun human being. But this book is so good. And then my other one, because I've told you a couple of times, it's called, and I don't believe that she is technically self-published, but she is working through a smaller publisher through Wales. It's Sophie Keach's Morgan Is My Name, which is a Arthurian legend. What if King Arthur was the villain and Morgan Le Fay was not? And it's just so good.
So I was actually looking at that. It is on my TBR. So yes, I haven't forgotten. It is there. And I do want to just say we can talk traditional publishers as well. I have spoken about traditional publishers on other episodes as well. So this is more just about the fantasy book space. Sure, we're predominantly indie, but like throw in a trad author every now and then too. I have a soft spot for Jennifer. I think she is an epic human being. I think she has a heart of gold, and I think she's doing great things. It's an epic romantasy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I've bought the book, but I haven't read it yet. Like it's on my TBR. We're seeing a theme here.
Yes.
So I'm really glad to see Jen's getting some more love because anyone deserves it. She does.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for her third book. She's like told me little like snippets and stuff. And I'm like, stop telling me. I want to read
it. But you get that out of us. I go, Kate, I came up with this idea. It's like, it's so cool. So yeah, that's kind of your fault.
That's true. Sorry.
But I have kept a few away from you. So you are going to be surprised. So I love surprising you.
If I get a Google Docs notification from you, I clear it without reading as much as I can because I'm like, I don't want spoilers.
Expect to see next from you, not just for Bookstagram, but for Bitchin' Books Editorial. And what are you hoping from 2025 and beyond?
That's a great question. I think I'm just hoping to find more clients, read more awesome books, and promote more self-published authors as best as I can. In that conversation that I had with my partner's dad a couple weeks ago, he kind of asked me the same question. And I think that I haven't taken the time to really dream about my business because I've been so, I don't know, worried that it wasn't going to work, that I've just been like clutching on to like, this is working with all of my life. And I haven't given myself the space to be like, what else could this be? And so that's kind of what I'm working on right now is trying to figure out, do I just want to edit? Do I want to like partner with someone and grow this into something else? I don't know. So for now, I'm telling myself that it's safe to let go a little bit and dream and to just kind of keep meeting as many authors as I can.
That's beautiful. And I think taking a chance on yourself is one of the hardest things that I think we do as people. And I think when we start seeing it work, then we're like, oh, wait, was I maybe being too hard on myself here?
Yes. Yeah.
I do have a follow-up question there. If an author or a unpublished author is listening to this episode and they think, hey, maybe Kate's Vibe is a fit for me and I want to maybe have a chat and see if there's a longer-term partnership there. What are some of the things that they should consider before reaching out to you?
I like to know upfront what people's timelines are like. And so having a timeline is really helpful. Knowing what your book is about is super helpful. And that's also, these are things that I keep thinking like, oh, I need to remind myself to ask these questions. Knowing where you are at your self-editing phase. Because I have worked with authors who have maybe only read through their manuscript once and things get really messy and tricky. And so I think reading it through and self-editing it a number of times, like 4 to 5 times before you're seeking an editor can just be really helpful for all parties involved. And then just understanding what your budget is and knowing that like we can work together to figure out a budget, figure out a payment plan. My goal here is like, it's not like a get rich quick scheme for me. It's a, how can I best support and promote you? And so if I can do that by getting paid over the course of 6 months, like that works for me. And so, I think them just knowing that I provide an open, I hope to provide an open communication business plan with the ability to ask questions. When I say something, I like it when authors are like, what about this? Like, it's okay to question. It's okay to have these conversations. And my biggest goal is that editing should be fun. So if you're feeling stressed and frustrated and like you're coming up against a wall, then something's going on and we need to look at that and discuss what it is, because it should be somewhere where your voice is being heard and you feel valued and supported.
That is an incredible answer. Thank you. And off the back of that, are there any genres that you don't suit or that you don't feel is a fit for your editing services?
Yeah, definitely nonfiction. And then I haven't come up against any really in the fantasy like subgenre. I don't know. I have on there that I do like dark romance, paranormal sci-fi, just because I have grown up reading and experiencing those things. So I know a lot of the creatures, and it's like, oh, actually, that's not what that creature does. It's this. And so not a ton, I guess maybe just like regular fiction. I think I struggle with the most just because it's harder for me to buy into and like keep interested. But even like I love working with contemporary romance and dark romance, and especially fantasy, sci-fi. That's kind of like my golden genres. So
Well, I actually learned through our editing relationship that you have a knack for the urban slash paranormal side of things, which not every editor can edit in. Because if you don't understand the genre, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the theory still applies. But if you don't understand the specific nuances within the genre, it makes that job a little bit harder.
that makes sense. I do really like urban fantasy. I
It
feel like it's
does.
so, it's like, this is what I wish life was like. I mean, I don't necessarily want to live in the rule of the damned, but I would like it if there was magic around the world.
Well, why do you think I write urban fantasy? It's the same reason. Because I'm like, imagine walking out your front door and, there's a werewolf running down the street. Like, just that whole train of thought, I'm already like, that's so cool.
Yes.
And
Imagine going into your house and snapping your fingers and all the lights turn on. Like, oh, what a dream.
But Kate, this has been such an incredible episode, and I know obviously I am a bit biased when it comes to you. I'm going to own that one up front. But I think also just learning more about your editing process, your business process, and just how we got you to this point. I think it's really cool. It's been wonderful. If someone's listening and they want to connect with you and just check out your services, what is the best place to do that in?
Yes. I would say you could either go to bitchinbookseditorial.com or just message me on my Bitchin Books Instagram.
I will pop the links on the episode description so anyone can follow that way. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Kate, we are going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll chat soon because that's what we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so much fun doing this. I love it.
Bye.